Hi everyone, I'm with Ross. Ross has recently joined MTOPS. A number of months ago, he came across MTOPS on TradingView and he asked a few questions around it. And now he is an absolutely vigilant student and someone who is taking the markets rather seriously. So I reached out to Ross just to see if he had a few minutes to kind of spend some time together. And the idea of my reaching out to him was through scrolling through social media and just seeing how much misinformation exists out there. And I was kind of curious what it's like to be someone who would transition from kind of having to deal with this ensemble of random information of all these different ideas coming in all the time to committing to a strategy and then putting that strategy to work and then obviously watching that strategy unravel on the market. So that's kind of the preface for the conversation. Ross, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
So my background is my training and everything is in sound engineering and music, and I've been a podcast editor for about over a decade, and been into sound engineering, doing live sound and stuff like that. So I've got a sort of science, and I studied, got a degree and stuff in music technology. So I've kind of got a background in kind of understanding of waves and cycles and stuff like that. So when I came across, well, let me backtrack a little bit more before, yeah, before I launch into that. Back in 2017, around 2017 is when I started getting into crypto, um, and I kind of was interested in it just because of the technology and the sort of optimism around it and how it could be world changing, and there was loads of like interesting projects. Um, Aside from the sort of trading side of things, so I sort of bought some Bitcoin, and kind of went. And then the more I looked into it, I was like, oh, actually, maybe I could earn some money out of this in a kind of passive way. And so I explored the world of bot trading because I thought, well, maybe this is a good hands-off way of um, not having to like delve into the world of trading, which I wasn't that interested in. I sort of came from a kind of like background of not really being into money or into like a kind of a bit of a hippie really, and like kind of anti-capitalist, and sort of had some strong views which kind of have changed over the years. I've been more open-minded, um, and yeah, as I sort of grew and learned, um, well, what's the word for me? It's a little bit, but I kind of developed. I was like realizing I needed a more holistic approach, and so I think it was the beginning of this year, I think, and I sort of started looking at actually thinking, well, maybe I could just get into trading and be more active and maybe do longer term trades or something like that. So what I found, and then I didn't know anyone at the time that really wanted to trade or talk about it, and kind of had a little bit of a shame about it in a way. I don't know why. There was some stuff going on anyway. So um, I started watching, I think, your videos, Blaine, on TradingView and various. I started following a few people on TradingView, and to get a sort of then be sort of blind to me. But yeah, it's all gonna like be like it's all gonna shoot to the sky and all that kind of stuff. I started getting thinking, well, let's be more realistic about this, and I found another guy who was had a bearish sort of look over the market. So I kind of started going, well, hang on, it was hard to swallow, but it was also like, no, this is necessary to be realistic. So as I sort of became realistic about stuff, I went, well, what if it does all crash and what if it does go to the sky, you know? So I thought, well, why not just trade on those two, work out a way of like still making money over those two possibilities, I guess. And so when I found your stuff, Blaine, I thought the holistic approach, the community, the sort of, I guess, your character that came across in your videos, and then I sort of took a, I just felt, oh, this guy seems genuine, you know, like in a sort of sea hype and crypto kind of stuff. And so I took a sort of leap of faith and went, okay, let's see what this is about. And um, yeah, I guess here we are now. So, and then yeah, there's probably more. There's more in depth in your course and stuff like that. But that's my summary.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a few points I just want to touch on as you were speaking. I just wrote a few things down. So, in joining in 2017, you now are the few that have witnessed two major bull runs in the crypto atmosphere. Of the three major bull runs, you've witnessed two, which is pretty cool because being in the game versus, I'll get to that in a second. People talking about being in the game is rather different, and the fun of watching the price go up is exhilarating, but the long periods of non-activity or declining activity is what a lot of optimistic newcomers don't necessarily see because of the guys who are hopium kind of con artists who are just pushing out optimistic posts and almost in a childish manner, just having this blind hope that if you buy Bitcoin, then everything is just going to work out. And yeah, so it does come with a sense of maturity to hang around and witness the ebbs and flows because the ebbs and flows aren't necessarily just financial based; it's also emotional based. So yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about from the 2017. And with regards to the technology of it, and not being a believer in the capitalist system, like that's where you and I are definitely kindred spirits for sure. So when I was in capital expansion for about 2 years before I jumped out of the rat race. And that gave me visibility into the underbelly of what businesses look like without the pizzazz and the outside uh, way of making people believe that everything is perfect and life is great. So like I would walk into businesses and the owner would literally have a sports car out front. And then I'd take a look at his financials and I just think, I mean, he's 10 weeks from insolvency. So there's a lot of facade, even in the established arenas, which was a rise of concern. So, like yourself, the technology for me to be anti-establishment is what kind of caught my eye primarily in the fact that it's an alternative to banking. You can have it kind of transact wherever you are in the world. It's decentralized and all that beautiful stuff. Um, so thank goodness this has emerged, and nowadays we've got banks who are rather interested in it, and we've got BlackRock, who's the second biggest holder of Bitcoin, I think, in the world at the moment. The second, third, or fourth, the top three or four, and that's kind of scary because they, with Vanguard and everything, it's not small money. It's the real deal. So going from $2,000 now into $70,000 is just, I think, it's hard to get your head around, especially when you look at the S&P 500 and if you look at the top American markets. I think the Dow Jones has increased in value by $1,000, if I'm not mistaken, over the last year. So it went from like 39 to like 38 to now kind of pushing on 40. And that's like a year. So like the pace of business in comparison to the pace of crypto is almost unparalleled, and going from a $2,000
Mm,
entity to a $70,000 entity over 6 years. It's just, or 6, 7 years is astronomical. So, um, when you got in, you're buy and hold. You want to do the passive earnings thing and just let it rise and rise and rise. And then you want to see some more activity because obviously your emotions got in the way. Because I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is that when you have money on the market, you don't just leave it on the market. It takes up your like it takes up space inside your brain. Like whilst you're thinking about, you know what I mean? Like, oh, my friends are going away on vacation, or the latest version of this hardware is out. I could really do with something like that, but I should watch the bills and watch my cash flow. But then I've got this crypto stuff and it has done well and it has gone up. Like people think you can just leave it there and it disappears. And I asked the question in one of my posts this morning, like if you had $1 million today, what would you invest it in? Like if you had one thing to invest in, and you could only take that money in 10 years from now, what would it be? And a lot of people don't realize that there's today there's that $1 million, there's a transition and transaction into their account, and then that's the day to day, the hour, the afternoon, the morning, for 10 years of knowing that it's there, but having to find another way to pay for things or raise capital for this or vacation or whatever. So it's super hard. So I can
Mhm.
see how you got into looking around for bots and realized that that couldn't have been the best way forward. Just on bots, tell me a little bit about your experience in what was promised and what was delivered, and how you felt about not being in control.
Yeah, I mean, I think what was promised was the hands-off kind of minimal input, which in a way, well, that's obviously not true because you have to maintain them and like, but it was kind of coming from I was sort of like into permaculture and stuff, and the philosophy of permaculture is like minimum input, maximum output, and you can apply that to kind of all sorts of things. So it's like, but it's basically just efficiency, you know. So it's like system that you put in a lot of work at the beginning, you set it all up, and then it kind of runs itself, and probably similar to your AI model now. But yeah, so the bots thing was like a really stone age version of the AI stuff now, I suppose. So it's like, but it's like literally, like it's sort of you literally. So from what I just basically copied bots at the beginning and kind of got my head around it, and they worked really well in a bull run, but they didn't work well in. I didn't really understand trends back then either, so I was just kind of going, yeah, it's working, it's making profits. I don't really know what's happening. I couldn't tell you why. It just is, and I was sort of
Yeah.
looking at results, and I thought, well, the results is what I'm after, so I'll just keep doing that. And then when that stopped doing that, I was like, okay, let's reassess and try different things. So I kind of got quite scientific about it and used the demo account to try all the different indicators with exactly the same bot settings, and kind of went, well, that one enters at that time, and and sort of figured out, fine-tuned it, and went like, well, that one's the best entry. And then even with that kind of level of like experimentation, it still only works really like in a bull run out. Like, so this was, I think this was like maybe last year I'd sort of I picked it up again because I kind of went through ebbs and flows with, oh my God, it's not working. I've lost loads of money, and I got stuck because they're DCA bots essentially. So you end up uh, keep buying down, and you end up with a massive pot, and then it's like, oh, it's still going down, and
Yeah.
so I got stopped out. Yeah. So in theory, like, yeah, it kind of works a bit, but up until a point, and then without the knowledge of the markets that I do now, like market structure and stuff, that MTOPS I think is probably one of the strongest or the most um, powerful sort of insights that I've learned from MTOPS. I think is the market structure. And I think even now, I could even actually go back to bots and be much more successful and go like, just if I could set it up to like make signals that correlated with market structure or following trend, then I think they'd be much more successful. But without that, it's not really integrated into, you have to kind of build it yourself, and it's sort of like, well, why do that when you can just make a good trade and not all these tiny little trades where it's like
Mm.
just kind of flinging shit at the wall kind of thing,
And paying the
Um,
fees that also comes along with it,
yeah,
because
yeah. So
every people don't realize
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I think I didn't realize. I mean, I didn't realize a lot of things. I mean, you. I think the only thing that actually stopped me losing money was the fact that the whatever I was holding was because Bitcoin was going up. So it's like I'm making all these trades, but am I making profit on the trades, or
Mm.
is it just because I'm holding coins and they're going up? So there was a lot of stuff I didn't understand about. So I ended, sometimes when I DCA down and lost, and then was holding like a random shit coin, I ended up with this portfolio full of like just like stuff, and
Mm.
I was like, hang on, what are all the like, like kind of it was like basically trading on loads of different coins. Wherever there was an opportunity, that you'd end up being in a trade with a random coin. So it's sort of yeah. Then came about portfolio management, and it was just like this. Yeah, this I was like, hang on, there's a lot more to this than I kind of realized, and I just wasn't interested enough in looking up like just random shit crypto projects that were gonna
Yeah. And there
flatline,
are
or
endless
the
amounts of them.
possibility of yeah. So I think just yeah, I kind of went through iterations and tried to simplify things, and um yeah, I think I just went, no, do you know what, this bot stuff isn't working for me anymore. I need to like I tried so many different ways, but yeah, that's when I started looking elsewhere and thought, well, like, what's the way that I can put maybe a bit of time into it, which I was more prepared to do, because I was like, well, maybe I know I had enough knowledge of signals and the sort of done the crash course in bots basically for like 4 years or something. So
Wow.
yeah, I had, since like maybe on and off since 2018 maybe to so it was like, I had a sort of uh, understanding of how to manage trades, I think,
Mm.
like how to kind of go, well, that's, going down, and maybe have a grasp of the emotional side of it as well. So I was not coming into MTOPS totally kind of wet behind the ears. It was like I'd kind of been through a few, a few losses and and stuff like
Jeez.
that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's some beautiful things that you touched on there, and the, what I'd wish for. Okay, so I'll take it a step back. The reason why I was on social media is I wanted to see what was working, and I just cringe every single time I see someone else's post, because I just feel that they're contributing to the additional pain that people need to go through and prolonging the losses because of the misinformation and all that sort of thing. So what happens there is that people like yourself who believe in the technology, who want to get back to their life and doing things that actually are high ROI, like for example, nature, that's abundance, always at play, as well as the music and your arts and your talent. So the the passion of wanting to make it work with trading, I think, exists in literally hundreds of thousands of people. However, the journey is such a disheartening um, punch to the ribs that few have the uh, endurance to make it through just the initial preamble of the journey. And that is, as you made mention to, like the everyone everyone's a hero in a bull run. And to your point, when you've got a portfolio, quote unquote, all these fancy words, of different performing kind of assets, which is another scam idea in itself. Because when you have a portfolio, you should have non co-integrated assets that need to have no relation to one another. And those who are shilling the idea that you can have bags of different crypto projects, and this one can do electrical, solar price management digitally and decentralized, and this one can do uh, supply chain analysis on the blockchain. And everyone's got this bright stupid idea, but they just basically taking money from those who've actually made the money in the real world, worked the hard hours, saved up, looking to invest in something, and taking it from those people and then just flush it down the toilets in their bullshit, stupid projects that never get anywhere anyway. And this, I mean, if you look at the number of just on shitcoins, yeah, I mean, it's true stuff. If you look at the amounts of shitcoins out there at the moment, I would say last time I checked, and this was years ago, there are multiple thousands of shitcoin options. So like when I started out, there was Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. I can mention a few others, but Monero and that kind of stuff, XRP and whatever. So it was still kind of, it was still, everyone had a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But then it just, when everyone could open up a token, it just became this marketing frenzy of rubbish, and then the companies would just disappear, which means that the money would just disappear, and then it's not a great thing. So asset allocation, in terms of what these guys are talking about, portfolios, is such a scam in itself. And having bots. Okay, let me take a step back. So even if someone has, let's say, five different altcoins that they really have been watching for a year, and they I don't know, they think it's going to go the distance, whatever the case to be. If Bitcoin moves, all of those get disrupted. But even if that is the case, and you want to keep your eye on the prize, then the amount of energy that it takes to monitor those five different life cycles, the energy, the mood, the the life of those markets is very, very tiring. Whereas I think a mature investor who's gone through the long journey of getting kicked in the ribs will come to the realization that you should have focus on something that you understand, something that you can relate to. Some guys like Forex, some guys like indices, some guys like crypto. I like 24/7 markets because the closing bell stuff, I think, should have been around in the 70s, and I get that, but we live in a day and age where there shouldn't be closing bells and an interruption in price data. So I'm in a space now where I've got gold, I've got Dow Jones, I've got Bitcoin. Those are my kind of three focuses. And when I've got the AI, it'll automatically deploy across many markets. But people don't realize that the bigger your crypto portfolio, the more lost you become. And then once you think you've got a grasp on your few kind of crypto assets, then Bitcoin does its own thing, and then all of them jump around. Another thing I want to touch on is that you said that you didn't know how well your actual trading was happening within the ecosystem because Bitcoin itself was growing in value. So it was hard to measure. And that's something not enough people talk about, is because when you jump into these bots and you jump into these kind of management systems and portfolio asset, all of that rubbish, it's actually hard to keep definitive metrics because the duping happens when you take your fiat, so you take your pounds, £1,000, and you go to an exchange to change that value over, so you got something that's digital. They generally don't put it into USDT. It normally goes from pounds into Bitcoin, and then from Bitcoin into the tertiary thing. And a lot of people have not realized that that is such a bad way to manage money, because now you're going to ecosystem number two and then ecosystem number three. So the people don't realize it's a 3D puzzle. It's like this, literally a 3D puzzle instead of watching a pairing of the I don't know, the euro dollar pairing where one goes up, the other one goes down. It's simple. When it comes to crypto, it's the third dimension. It's the sub markets within the markets, and they integrated to the pairings that they're in. Again, if Bitcoin goes down, and even if whatever the story is, then everything gets wrecked. So portfolio management with these automated systems is near impossible unless It's strictly kept with the USDT pairing, but people don't think that way because now they feel that they're part of the crypto sphere. So just a great point to touch on in terms of trying to keep up to date with portfolio management, according to these guys. And
Mm.
yeah, so I think I want to hand the mic back to you after this because a bit of a runaway horse there. But the, what I find quite wasteful is the amount of lessons that someone who's optimistic about the world of markets needs to go through. And should they still have humility about them years later, then still start from a clean slate to get back into the construction of how markets truly operate. And this is, I think, where my frustration comes on, where I'm not very good at online marketing and I haven't got the reach that these other bozos have got by any stretch of my imagination. But I just feel poorly for those who don't have access to how MTOPS works from the initiation stages, the from the beginning, because the amount of time spent learning the cycles of a market, the turning points, the higher turning point transitions becoming the trend to the lower time frames, and just those core basics, just the true understanding that the market's not always profitable. There's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be kill zones that are needing to be confirmed. There's going to be transitions that need to complete on the lower frame before the anchor points are solidified on the current frame. Like there's just fundamentals as such that I wish almost everyone knew, but because there's just this scramble to make money now, tomorrow, and the next day as easy as possible, as fast as possible, the time aspect people aren't putting into it. And my kind of wish there is that even to a point, like maybe bots aren't all that bad if you are on vacation, but aware that there's a transition from a turning point 8 to a turning point 9 that's about to transpire. And you've got the bots buying and selling on your behalf on a lower frame. So it's higher frequencies, but overall the trend's going up. So you don't necessarily need to manage that yourself. Then I can kind of see its point. But all of the guys out there that are just going in, not knowing the why and the when, um, even and I'll finish off my point here. Even if it's really bad for them. And my point with the AI thing is that I had false assumptions that I could also just deploy this on markets and just let it run and forget about it. But the more I come close to real life market interaction with it, the closer I'm becoming to the realization that why would I want my AI to be on the market doing anything when there is a kill zone at play um, on a major time zone that is significant to the rest of the market activity. Why would I want to be paying those high fees to the exchanges, to taking on those paper cut losses by non-activity in the accumulation and consolidation phase and so forth? So knowledge is power. But the absence of knowledge, I think, comes from those who just want to offset the responsibility, or they're just growing tired by the amount of rubbish that is available, and I'm not getting through to the good stuff. Anyway, so I think, yeah, I should take a breath over there. Tommy, does anything you want to say?
Um, I mean, so touching on like what you said about kind of the amount of rubbish. I mean, I when I was like looking into different ways of looking at the markets and technical analysis, and when I sort of got, I think it was, yeah, basically from the doing the bot experiments, looking at signals, and I sort of went, well, what? Hang on, there's so many signals out there. There's so many different ways of uh, interpreting data, essentially, and that's when I got interested in it, in and going, well, what's a way that makes sense? And I kept seeing like these, horizontal support and resistance lines that you talk about being kind of not as useful as
Yeah,
the
like
looking at.
when is it going to happen there?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And so, and then I think I looked at, I think what I was intrigued by was originally with, I think when I stumbled across some of Gan's stuff, and the idea that it was in sort of like um, geometric patterns, I was like, oh, hang on, this looks different. And me being quite unconventional, I'm like, I'm just gonna go for the most like obscure, weird shit that I can find and see
Awesome.
like, and obviously, and then I did not know what I was letting myself in for. Like when I read about GAN, the more I read about it, and I was like, oh my God, this stuff is like fucking like,
Yeah,
excuse my language, but
yeah,
out
I
of
love
this
it.
world, like, and to the point. So the thing that when I never knew that this would come from trading, but like actually it's questioned so many things about myself and my spirituality and not even just like my emotional, the sort of reflection of like who I am emotionally when I'm actually trading and looking at the price moving and all that kind of stuff, but deeper kind of understanding about how the world works. And like I think with the MTOPS, it's like I found that uh, I was pretty skeptical, like healthily skeptical about like anything that's sort of like this could be sort of interpreted in certain ways. You could be like, well, is that, you could just draw a line through anything and make a pattern. And I think there's maybe, yeah, part of it. It's like, oh, testing that, testing like is that just like a random thing, or is there a sort of a correlation there? So there's quite a lot of because in this, particularly in like spiritualism and stuff like that, there's quite a lot of things that you could be like, well, how far is that like believable, or is that just like a total coincidence, or so there's a lot of questions that came up like that. So um yeah, but through sort of testing and kind of like going, well, let's just see how this pans out, let's see how this works, and kind of like do you kind of have to take a leap of faith and sometimes and just go like, well, that works, that doesn't work, or is that just, is that useful? So parts of I'm still learning quite a lot of, I feel like I've got quite a bit more to learn about MTOPS, and there's tools that I've not really explored deeply, but I've sort of taken one step at a time and getting to thorough with, I guess, certain aspects of it. But I think, yeah, ultimately it's like kind of using a variety of tools to kind of build a picture, or build like there's maybe one that's like, well, that could go either way with that one, or it could go either way with that one. And then at a certain point you go, well, I've whistled it down enough to kind of negate any doubt in that one, or so you kind of making educated decisions,
Nice. Yeah.
sort of like a bit like Sudoku or something like that, like you kind of go, well, it could be that or that, it could be that or that, and then eventually you've kind of got a picture, and you've got a pieces of the puzzle that kind of like building a support for a certain argument. But yeah, so you start off with it could go anyway, and then you gradually kind of bring it all together into a sort of like, well, this could be feasible, and this could be feasible, and then you kind of make a decision with the knowledge that you have. So that's, yeah,
So
for
we've
me.
got
Yeah.
I think 2 minutes to go. I think what you already know, because I speak of it, is that the repetition is the mother of skill, and the you get to a point of the law of diminishing returns where the more you learn, the more it kind of takes away from what you already know. And the beauty of MTOPS is that once you've got the repetitive action on the markets, then you want to simplify as best possible. And the true real challenge with any strategy, with anything market related, is the actual market pace itself. So I think my best advice is just to be aware of the market pace and your reaction to how long it takes to do anything, because it's literally hours. People forget how quickly, well, how small a candle looks on the screen, but that's a long period of time every time a new one forms. If you can get yourself around that and just simply work on the highs and the lows of the market, I can tell you through experience, you are ahead of 90% of those out there, because as we already know, they're still trying to figure out all of the paper cuts, whereas you're just waiting patiently for a decent entry outside a kill zone and allowing it to run itself out to somewhere later in the GAN tool, close it, change direction, rinse, repeat. So I think where you are right now, your progress, what you're sharing with the community, your activity, your questions, it just shows me that you've gone from an anti-capitalism person, which I have as well. I hate taxation and the Italian mafia system that they've got going, to seeing that it takes money to operate in this realm. And if you're going to be doing the life of abundance and being out there and doing the things you love, you might also have money to support those activities. And I
Hmm.
think your permaculture aspect applied to the market, just being patient, allowing it to mature, getting a new setup, and just following that means you've gone from someone who's curious to someone who's on their track to mastery. So thanks, Ross, for hanging out. Thanks for sharing your story. It's really great to see for the first time in video format. And
Yeah,
before the video jumps off, thanks, man.